Hello everyone, thank you so much for jumping on. I know the quality is a little bit bad. I'm just recording on my computer because I feel really called to share this with you. I want to chat a little bit about boundaries, and the reason why is because the other day I had the most amazing Akashic Record reading with a really beautiful lady, and what came through for her was a really big lesson around boundaries, and the way that spirit described boundaries in that session made so much sense. And I was like, oh my gosh, of course, like that's what boundaries actually mean. So I really just want to say that what came through for me resonates with me, and what came through from spirit is just an explanation around how boundaries actually work. So let's say that you decide that you were going to have a boundary around people not calling you a derogatory name, chatting to you in a really nasty way, calling you names, anything like that, okay? So let's say you create that boundary and you say, I'm not going to accept anybody calling me nasty names. I'm not going to accept anybody talking badly of me. That is my boundary, right? Here is your line drawn in the sand. That's it, not accepting anything else. So then you create this boundary, right? And then somebody comes along and they call you a mean name. They call you something really rude. It triggers your boundary, okay? So instead of having that boundary there to deflect the trigger or push away the trigger or act as if it's not even happening, kind of building up that barrier wall, what that's going to do is still trigger your boundary, right? It's still going to trigger, and whether you are conscious or unconscious of this, it is going to create harm. It's going to create like almost like a hole in your barrier. It's going to create tension and friction and challenge and a wound in your barrier. So every time that you deflect something that triggers your boundary, it's still going to cause you a challenge. It's still going to not be the intention of what a boundary actually is. What a boundary is here to teach us, and what a boundary is here to do for us, is to allow those triggers to move through and not get caught. Okay, so those boundaries act as a barrier from attachment. And when Spirit described this in the reading, it made so much sense, right? Because when we think of boundaries, we think of building a wall, we think of creating some sort of barrier so nothing can come through. But in actuality, what a boundary is meant to do is allow the trigger to move through, or whatever you've created a boundary in relation to, allow it to move through so it doesn't get stuck in here. And what I'm saying, like in here, I'm saying in your energetic system, in your body, in your spirit, in your mind, in your soul, in here, in this lifetime. So a boundary is here to allow those things to move through, because they're still going to come. Challenges are still going to arise. Things are still going to trigger your boundaries. You have no control about anything other than this, other than you, other than your boundary, other than your energetic system. That's what you have control over, your life. You do not have control over what somebody else is going to do. Setting these boundaries doesn't mean that somebody isn't going to come along and trigger them or challenge them. All it means is that you have to have a strong enough boundary, a strong enough space, a strong enough mentality, spirit, power, ability to allow those triggers to move through and not get caught, right? Makes so much sense. And it was like a huge light bulb moment for me. So when something does come and it triggers that boundary, what you need to do is, okay, there's that thing, there's that trigger against my boundary, and you know what? I'm just going to let it through. Acknowledge that it triggered your boundary. Acknowledge that it happened. Acknowledge that something did move through you and it did trigger some emotions, that it hit that boundary, right? There is a fly going around my room. I don't know if you can see it. Acknowledge that that did affect your energetic system, and then let it go. Let it move through. Don't create any attachments, because that is what creates space, and that's what takes up space within our energetic system. So the way that Spirit described it for me was that when we have these boundaries set and something comes in and it triggers that boundary, when we create an attachment, it like bounces around in our energetic system, in that boundary. And that can continue to happen if we're not aware. And when more and more and more stuff happens, you can visualize that it takes up room within your energetic body. It takes up space. And the things that are taking up space are limiting beliefs, triggers, things that you do not want in your life. And then you are wondering why you cannot push to a new level. You're wondering why you're having a hard time connecting to source. You're having a hard time expanding your spirituality. You're having a hard time expanding as a human, because there are things in your energetic body that are taking up space, and it's creating a block. Get it? Like, it's blocking your ability to expand, because there's just literally no space left. I hope that makes sense for you guys, and I hope that that enlightens a little bit about boundaries, because I know for me, I used to think, yeah, boundaries means barrier, but it doesn't. It just means that things should be able to move through without creating attachment to it. So I hope that you guys enjoyed that. I hope that that sheds a little bit of light on boundaries, and also a little bit of light around why sometimes we can't level up, why sometimes we do feel stuck at a certain level and we're just like trying new things and it just doesn't seem to be helping us energetically. We just seem to be stuck in a rut almost. And it's like we really do have to allow and create and move that space within our energetic body and really be conscious about what we're holding on to. So there are so many things that can help you do that. Reiki is really, really good. Getting a life coach, getting a spiritual life coach, diving deep and doing some journaling, getting readings done, figuring out what is exactly blocking you, and just bringing that to the forefront is a really great way to allow those blocks to dissipate. Because when they're hanging out in our subconscious mind, they are controlling us. When we bring it from our subconscious mind into our conscious mind, we take away its unknown power and we put the power back into our hands. And then we can consciously decide, okay, that's not a limiting belief that I want to hold. That's not something that I want to have an attachment to. That's not something that I want taking up precious and sacred space within me. That's not what I want. And when you do that, you can consciously decide what you want and what you don't want. And that is the beauty about each and every one of you, is that you have the power. You literally have this power within you to say, I don't want that in my life. I don't want to create an attachment to it. I do not want it to take space within me anymore. And just by saying those words and creating that intention gives you the ability to make that possible and make that true. So I love you all so, so much. If you are wanting to get an Akashic Record reading done with me, if you are wanting to get an abundance reading done with me, any sort of reading, if you were wanting spiritual mentoring, please message me, hit me up. I am more than happy to talk to you about which services might feel better for you at the moment. I'm also doing past life regression, and our Unlocking Your Intuition e-course has gone to self-paced, which is such an amazing way for you to get in touch with your intuition, unlock that sacred voice within you and that guiding compass within you, because we all have access to our intuition. We all have access to our third eye, and we really create a firm foundation within this course so that you can build up. We help release old things that aren't serving you anymore. We help you create these boundaries. We help you get really in touch with your intuition and what your intuition looks like, and also how to make really, really conscious decisions from your intuition. I'm sending you so much love and so much light.